On today's video, I'm going to be showing you on this stud Gen Ls swap Camaro that we have, basically built on the channel. I'm going to be showing you how to shave, smooth out your antenna, however you want to call it, antenna, delete, antenna, it depends where you're at, how you pronounce it. But we got the antenna hole right here. It's usually on the fenders. Sometimes they're on the driver's side, but most vehicles have got them on the passenger side. Don't know why. It just, it's a factory thing, I guess. I guess they prefer the passenger side because it don't interfere with the driver's side viewing area where you drive. I don't know. I didn't design the car. I just know it got the antenna here. So we're going to delete this because it gives the car more of a clean look. And you really don't need an antenna unless you listen to the radio, but you can actually, Bluetooth your phone to newer radios, aftermarket radios and stuff, and just listen to the radio that way, Spotify and stuff like that. You don't need to do it with just the factory antenna. You can keep it if you like original. I'm rambling on. Let's get to shaping this. In order to do this, you will need some tools, maybe some sandpaper if you ain't got, a grinder on hand, but I highly recommend a grinder because your welds is going to need smooth down. But as you can see, we got a little tiny dent. I got my welding hammer all ready to go, shaving the antenna. Thumbnail. That's a pretty good thumbnail, I think. So what I'm going to do is take you through each step the way I shave this. You can cut out a little piece of metal, go in here. You can hold it with just like a little magnet or something, or you can just walk your weld and weld this up. You use more welding wire by walking this, but if you take your time, you don't have to use a patch because you can weld that hole up. So I'm going to explain to you how to walk this weld and weld this up step by step. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up so this is all nice and shiny, the metal is bar, and we have a good connection. Then we need to clean the spot off right here so we can hook a ground to a welder. So I got everything cleaned up now, as you can see. If you paint the fender, you might want to put your ground somewhere else, or just tack it over here and not do it in an area like this, because that's more places you gotta paint. But if you blend in the panel back after this repair, it'll work out. You might have to call you on the door a little bit. If you just blend onto the door, it usually comes out great. Save yourself the work. But I'm doing this video, this whole car is getting painted, so it don't matter if we do this. This fender's getting primered, blocked down, smoothed out. Put you some cardboard box or something so you don't get splatter from your welder onto your windshield. This is a new windshield, by the way. So I got the ground set up, the welder, and I'm using 030 is the welding wire I got. This is flux core, non-gas, because this little welder I'm using I kind of do pack around with me. So I'm going to put my welder right in here at an angle, and I'm going to weld this little section up by walking it. And you want to give it time to cool. Wear gloves, but I'm not going to, but you should, and always wear safety gear. So my welder needs adjusting just a tad. Let's see if this adjustment helps this welder. Much better. So this is close up. You can see I'm walking it, and when I say walking it, I'm going in here at an angle. I'm catching right here, look where this tip of wire is, edge of this weld, and I just strike it real fast, let off, strike it, let off, strike it. You want this to cool off too before you do this. Strike it about 3 or 4 times, let it cool, and then strike it and walk some more. And you keep doing this and you will weld this hole up without adding any filler metal. Now, the best way to do this is cut you a little piece of metal and then just weld the gap all the way around it. That's a simple fix, but if you ain't got that and you got a big gap on a piece of metal or a big butt joint, just walk your weld and you can do it. Now this is non-gas, so it's going to look like this till we clean it up. And we done got a dent here, so I'm not too worried about warping this panel, but it can be warped, so just take your time. This is what it looks like. It's actually got 2 passes on it. It's got one that's been walked, like I was first showing you, and then cleaned off, completely let it cool down, and then on top of it, after it was clean, you get all the flux from the flux core off. I went over top and just beaded this, even this dent, with some little welds to spot in it. So when we grind it down, it'll build it up more than usual. And you want to give it proper time to cool off so you don't get no warpage down in here and all that stuff, because as this cools, its metal tightens up. As it's hot, it expands. So that's how come warpage happens. You get too much heat in it and it tries to cool down, it tightens up, and the panel goes all wavy on you and stuff. All I got is like a 40 grit sanding wheel right here. It's from Benchmark Abrasives, and I'm just gonna smooth this down. You want to ever so often check your panel, make sure you ain't putting too much heat in it, because this grinding this down will throw heat. So I'm gonna let this cool off, finish it up some, make sure there ain't no holes, and then wire brush all in here. And you know, we lay some fiberglass over top of this, and that'll be a pretty decent little repair for this old hot rod here. Don't forget to disconnect your battery when welding. This one was always disconnected. Does third Gen Ls looking good in there. If you've not seen the videos on this car and you're new, check my channel out. You know, like tons of content on this and more content to come very soon. But this is the repair we got so far. You can see the dents down here. That's actually all the dents in this fender is right here. The rest of it's all paint. So we're just going to go ahead and hit this with a wire brush. Make sure we get down in here so fiberglass will stick. And that wire brush lets you get in all these little dents here. Gets all that paint out. So once you get done wire brushing this, you need to take an air nozzle and blow this off. You see that dirt just came out of that? All that needs cleaned out. You need to check it for pinholes. You don't want, you know, no pinholes. If you do got a little pinhole, you need to weld it up. We got one right here. Needs welded, and maybe one right here. So I'm going to weld these pinholes up. Now, once you get this all cleaned up, you do not want to touch it with your bare hands, because if you put a handprint on this, it's metal. After fill, it will rust from underneath. Just get it as clean as you can, and then add your fiberglass or filler. I mean, if you got this perfectly smooth, you could put a couple coats of high build, sand it, block it, more high build, and not even have to use filler. But if you're going to go that route, use a 2K primer, because the 1K does shrink. And when you're dealing with places like this, you need something with a catalyst that don't shrink. So a 2K high build primer would actually, with some coats, especially Tamco primer, if you ain't never hit a Tamco, you need to try it out. The shrinkage is almost none. So you could actually fill us in with a big couple passes, block it down, a couple more passes, and this will be all filled up. And I have personally used it on vehicles and repairs like this, and seen the car about a year later, and it's still just as smooth as it can be. And that's vehicles that set out in the sun. Tamco's a very good product. Let's go ahead and add some filler now. So I got a pizza box here with some filler. Everybody say don't use boxes when doing body work, but I have used boxes since I was pretty much born, because I grew up in this kind of stuff and never had an issue. I say a lot of body shops ain't never had issues out of boxes either. I don't get where the bad, you know, stuff come from, like the myth of boxes is bad to mix your body work stuff on. Now, we didn't use a lot of hardener on this because it is kind of a hot day. We want some time to work with this. This is Bondo hair, by the way. Something I like using to fill any kind of huge dents that you can't get out, or pinholes, stuff like that. It don't shrink too bad, but it is hard to work with once it dries. We mix that up. I might mix it a little too much. Let's go ahead and apply this. Yeah, I mixed way too much. But it gives us plenty to work with. And I'm just putting it on the parts that needs it, because you don't want to have to work your whole panel with fiberglass filler, because then it's just a pain to do. This is what the repair looks like. Looks pretty good. We actually got the dents that was through here. And it's very thin. It filled in the dents really good, but thin in other places. But back here I got kind of high because we're going to shape this down to size. This is what it looks like. Now this is good enough. I'm going to lay some primer on it. You want to do light coats. You don't want to try to fill in all these imperfections. You know, with one coat, you want to put this on, give it, you know, drying time, about 20 minutes, put another light coat on it, put your 3 or 4 coats on it, then let it completely dry, block it down. You can add more to it where you like it, but you can see it looks really good. I did go over this with 220 before spraying this. You know, I ground down the fiberglass with just the grinder, and then I went over quickly with 220. You can see it's pretty smooth. I mean, it's got a little bit of wave, you can see in the light right there, where we did some body work. But this primer will help, you know, pretty well build this up. And then we can block it down. It might not even need any body filler if we add this primer. But what I will do is prime this down extremely good, block it down, see if it needs any filler once we get down here. Then we put a good 2K over top of this primer, because you know, if you do this right and use this primer right, it's pretty good stuff. If it's clean, it's gonna stick. But I definitely will use a 2K over top, because this does shrink over time. But I'm not too worried about the shrinkage. I will let this car set about a week in 2K primer, and then make sure nothing else is gonna shrink down. This is after 3 coats of high build. It's looking pretty good. It's not been blocked yet, but to be honest with you, I think most of this will block out. Especially after we block it one time, and then we put a 2K ultra high build that I got for this car on this whole fender. I think that won't need body work. Now, I've been doing body work for a long time, and what waves we got though, I think a block out. And with the 2K high build, I'm pretty sure it will, because it will, the high build I got will build up about as thick as a 25-cent, you know, piece. So you add a 25-cent piece thickness on this, which you will block that off a lot. That's going to take them little waves out of this. That's a good thing about it. Most people just use regular primer. It goes on super thin. But if you get an ultra high build 2K product, and you spray on a lot of them dents that you see in your car and everything, and block the car nice and straight, it'll take them completely away. This is the repair the next day. I went ahead and blocked this with 220. You can see it looks extremely good. This right here needs worked in. I got to take the hood off to work that body line in a little straighter, but you can do that when we go to jam the inside of these fenders and stuff when we paint. So let's go ahead and use some of this Rust-Oleum sandable primer over top of this. And now this builds up a little bit higher than the Duplicolor. From personal experience it does. And you can see a little low spots. Right there have dents. And we're going to block them out, because them ain't really super bad enough. I mean, you could skim them with a thin coat of body filler and get rid of them, you know, very easy. But I'm just going to prime all this and block it down a couple times. About 3 coats of primer. I'm going to let this set 5 minutes, put another coat on it, and 5 minutes, put another coat on it. Third coat of primer is applied, and those is pretty much gone. All you see is kind of a wave down in there. Now once this dries, this is on pretty thick too. Once this dries good, we'll block it down, and it should be done, as I said. So hopefully you found this video enjoyable. Hopefully you enjoyed me doing a, you know, antenna, however you pronounce it, diddly on this car. I think its stud gen's gonna be nice. So if you're new, get subscribed. If you're a returning subscriber, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.